Sarah Rumbaugh. I'm the Tacoma City Council member for District 2, and here we are in District 2 actually. And I just want to say I'm so excited to be here today to ride the link with Downtown on the Go, an organization I have believed strongly in and support. So I definitely support another opportunity to take this to the voters. And I think we need to take something that voters understand better. So I think we always try to throw everything in the kitchen sink at things. I think we need to really think about what are the necessary things to be in there. I think we need to reassure them that it's not costing them more. That seems to be where people are. And I think we just had a bad chance because it was like all of these things are happening at the same time and people just really couldn't focus on anything else but what taxes looked like if they were going to increase for them. I'm really concerned about mobility, multi-mobility. The number one thing in our city is making sure we still fix sidewalks, that we have ways for people to use other alternatives besides a car. And then the number one thing for me really is the greening of our city and figuring out how we can make that part of this. I support strongly, this sounds funny because you don't see the link, but I support incentives for police officers to have a fully staffed police force so that we can then be out enforcing our speed limits. Because I think that's really what this is when you're not making people slow down because you're not there. I think that is a detriment to every pedestrian. And I believe strongly that we do none of that. They have 2 police officers on that in the city. You cannot have 2 police officers looking at enforcement of speed. You know, you need to think about what we actually need because every life is valuable. And I can tell you out in Northeast Tacoma, we have had so many incidents with cars. But when we start talking about Portland Avenue and the car and a pedestrian, none of this should be happening. So I really strongly believe that that's one thing that we can be doing. And there's a lot of other things, but I really want to talk about that one too.
On the train.
Well, I'm not sure how impact fees play into it because those are tied to new development, but I really support impact fees. And any developer out there, I don't really care what you think. I think impact fees, I was at the City of Kent and they had impact fees and it made a better city. So I believe in impact fees and anything creative with any sort of, I'd love to hear what other people have and ideas. I'm not sure I know enough about, the street initiative was another way to get funding, but that was we always were guaranteed that was going to happen. We're losing federal dollars. So the other thing I've been thinking about and been talking to Jake Fye about is how do we get more transportation dollars from the state, especially for unsafe, like streets that we know are critical streets for accidents and fatalities. So I 100% support Pierce Transit having more funding because they cannot support infrastructure in the way they should. I think they should have longer hours. I think they should have more routes. They should serve Northeast Tacoma, which is not even in their plan for 2070, I think it is, or 2050. Yeah, 2055? 2045. Yeah, I'm going to be an old lady then. I still think they should have service everywhere in our city. I think the role of the city is to come in and support Pierce Transit with wraparound other things that would go with that. So for instance, if development's happening and they need a bus stop, we should be making sure that that's part of that development. There's ways to support the necessary needs of Pierce Transit with other things so that it can make it more make the cost better for them and for us. But I definitely think that we have been doing them a bad thing by not helping them get this on the ballot. So we would definitely write a letter of support. We have people who serve on Pierce Transit on our council. I'm not on that committee because I do other things, but I support them in us moving this forward. Transportation issue in my district is making sure that the link is completed from, like, it coming down from Federal, that is completed, and knowing that Sound Transit is $30 billion in the hole right now, that is my most important concern, because listening to the mayor of Seattle, Bruce Harrell, talk about how he's going to make sure all cities are investing in this concerns me, because this is a city that is always on the cusp of how are we going to afford things, and putting that on us is not going to be fair. So I'm most concerned about that. We've promised voters that would get here. You know, people are invested in ST3. I think that sends a bad message that like there's going to be a funding issue. I support fully this getting built. So that is my number one, like, transportation issue if you're talking about multimodal transportation projects. There's other things, but that's probably the one I want to focus on. Yeah, so I think that I didn't mention zoning and how important that is when we're looking at where transportation projects are. And so, for instance, we were just in Stadium District, and that's a really good example of a place where making sure that zoning should be easier for these affordable housing projects, mixed-use projects. We should do as much as we can to support that, because that will bring more development there, more people, and that just does more to support that transportation choice. So that's something I think is really important I didn't really get to talk about.